What's up everyone, Piscean here. In this video I want to talk about this Quantum Astrology Forecasting Codex and go over it in detail. This was crafted with the help of AI agent Perplexity. 29 pages long, including this one. Please like, subscribe, comment, share if you dare and care. If you want to continue pushing my videos out so you can learn astrology for free and also have people around you learn astrology for free. So let's get into this. This is a new thing here, forecast and horoscope calculations via quantum mechanics metaphor. I'm really excited to bring this to you guys with the help of Perplexity. So as we can see here, there's some contents we're going to go over. There's a few different sections here. So first we're going to go over the reader's note, the framework, metaphor, as well as limitations. Next we're going to go over the quantum horoscope engine, which is a 6-layer forecasting architecture. And third is forecast calculation model, the QFI formula and sample calculations, quantum concepts as astrology lenses, 7 principles from physics to chart reading, as well as planetary probability fields, 10 bodies as quantum field operators, transit forecasting architecture, probability windows, interference, tunneling, 12-sign quantum forecast, probability themes, constructive waves, shadow interference, example horoscope reading, sample calculation, as well as interpretation, and a closing synthesis, forecasting as probability art. So in these 9 sections, hopefully you can take something away from this video and learn about using quantum in astrology. So first, let's begin with this reader's note. It says this codex presents an original symbolic forecasting framework that uses concepts from quantum mechanics as interpretive metaphors for astrological practice. It is not a scientific claim that quantum mechanics validates astrology. It is a creative framework that finds in quantum physics a rich language for describing the probabilistic, observer-dependent, and non-deterministic nature of astrological forecasting. No birth data was provided, so this is not a personalized reading. The forecasts and calculations within are conceptual demonstrations of the framework. A personalized quantum astrology forecast requires birth date, exact birth time, and birth location to compute actual planetary positions using professionally famished data. And then there's a core premise. Astrology does not predict deterministic events, it maps probability fields. A transit does not mean something will happen, it means the probability of certain themes increases. The client's awareness, choices, and actions are the observation that collapses probability into event. This is a quantum astrological perspective. And here is the quantum horoscope engine, 6 layers that combine to produce our forecast here. So we see all in the middle, it ties back to this quantum horoscope engine. For example, this is tied to it, our transit probability field, time evolving wave evolution, observer client attention, as well as consciousness collapses wave, planet particle, archetypal energy as quantum particle, aspect interference, planetary relations as wave patterns, house measurement chamber, life domain as observation field, and expression style as wave function, sine wave state. So in more detail, we'll go into this. So we'll call it the QHE. It's a 6-layer framework for astrological forecasting. Each layer corresponds to a quantum concept mapped onto a traditional astrological element. Together they produce a forecast that is inherently probabilistic, observer-dependent, and rich with possibility rather than deterministic prediction. Looking at the layer, as well as the quantum concept, astrological element, and what it measures. For example, we see particle. It's our first layer, and concept here, quantum speaking, it's archetypal energy. Quantum archetypal energy. And this is resembling our planet. The fundamental unit of archetypal force, what energy is active? We have our wave state, which is probability wave function being the sign, the zodiacal sign, This is how the energy expresses the style and frequency of the wave. Measurement chamber, observation field, house, where the wave is measured, the life domain of activation. Interference, wave interaction pattern. These are aspects, how planetary waves combine. Amplification, cancellation, beating. Probability field, time evolving wave. So transit, how the wave changes over time, okay? The forecast dimension. And observer, which is consciousness measurement, and client attention, how awareness collapses probability into lived event. And here is forecast equation. So a QFI, or quantum forecast intensity, is a symbolic formula that combines all 6 of the layers we just went over into a single measure of how strongly a transit will manifest in the client's lived experience. So as we can see here, it's QFI equals T X A X H X D X 0. Or, oh, my bad. So where T equals transit strength, and that's how close and slow the transit is. A equals aspect tension harmony, interference pattern quality. H equals house relevance, how connected the activated house is to the client's current focus. D equals dignity coherence, how well supported the planet is in its sign. And O equals observer readiness, the client's awareness and willingness to engage. If any factor is 0, the forecast intensity is 0. A powerful transit with 0 observer readiness produces no lived event. This is not a failure of astrology, it is the quantum nature of the system. Without observation, the wave does not collapse. Forecast calculation model. So the QFI formula produces a score from 0 to 1 or 0% to 100%, indicating the probability that a given transit will manifest as a significant lived event. Below are sample calculations for hypothetical transit scenarios. All values are illustrative. So we see our transit scenario, T, A, H, D, O, and QFI from what we just went over up here. So remembering that this is our transit strength, aspect tension, harmony, house relevance, observer readiness, and dignity coherence. So, for example, we're going to look at the Saturn return conjunction to the natal sun. 0.95, 0.80, 0.90, 0.85, 0.70. QFI is 0.41. Jupiter trinatal Venus, 0.70, 0.90, 0.75, 0.80, 0.60, and we end up with our QFI being 0.23. Uranus square the natal moon. Going down, we end up with a QFI of 0.09. Pluto conjunct the natal midheaven. We see that QFI is at 0.25. Mercury retrograde over natal Mercury. It ends up being 0.18. And then Neptune opposing the natal sun ends up with a QFI of 0.04. So essentially, reading the QFI, we can see that 0.30 to about 1.00 is high. So that's our highest there. And then our lowest is 0.00 through 0.09. So when we speak of high QFI, the transit will almost certainly manifest as a significant lived event. The probability field is dense, the interference is strong, and the observer is engaged. So we see 0.10 through 0.29 is moderate. And this transit will manifest, but its form is less determined. Multiple outcomes remain in superposition. And with our low QFI, the transit is present, but may not manifest as a concrete event. It operates as background radiation, shaping the field without producing a specific outcome. And right here, we're going to get into quantum concepts as astrology lenses. So 7 core quantum concepts, each reimagined as an interpretive lens for astrological practice. These are not scientific equations, they are creative metaphors that illuminate the probabilistic, observer-dependent, and non-linear nature of the chart. So aspect interference patterns, planetary waves and superposition. So right off the bat, Constructive interference is a trine. Waves amplify natural flow and ease. So it goes in motion. The combined signal and destructive interference, opposition, waves cancel, tension and paradox. But we can still see those waves moving. I'm not doing it all the way right, but so these are aspect interference patterns. We see constructive is trine, destructive is opposition, and complex is square. So waves create beats, friction and creative tension as it goes multiple ways. Still going up and down right here, just can't see it. So let's talk about superposition and the quantum principle, astrological application, forecasting use, and we're going to continue onwards with a few other subject matters. So superposition. Basically, before observation, a quantum system exists in all possible states simultaneously. That's our QP. And then our AA, and then our FU, not literally FU, but our forecasting use. So in quantum astrology, a transit or progression, creates a superposition of possible life paths. Before the client engages with the transit, before they observe it, all outcomes coexist as probability waves. For example, a Jupiter transit to the 10th house does not mean career success will happen. It means the wave function of career has expanded in multiple outcomes: promotion, new job, public recognition, starting a business, all exist in superposition. The collapse, the choosing of one path, happens through engagement, decision, and action. Forecasting use. So when forecasting always present multiple possibilities, do not collapse the wave prematurely by predicting a single outcome. Instead, map the probability field and let the client's choices determine which outcome decoheres into events. So this is for y'all that want to learn how to be astrologers yourself. Take some notes down. So observer effect. We're going to get into our same thing here, our QP. It's the act of measurement changes the system being measured. Our AA in quantum astrology, the reader and the client are observers whose attention changes the meaning of a transit. A Saturn transit experienced without awareness feels like a blind fate. The same transit, observed and engaged, becomes a conscious process of building and structuring. The act of reading the chart, of bringing conscious attention to the probability field itself, collapses certain possibilities and opens others. This is why the same transit can manifest so differently for different people. The observer effect means that awareness is not passive perception, but active participation. Always ask the client what they are observing in their life right now. Where their attention goes, the wave function collapses. Help them direct their observation toward the possibilities they want to actualize, not just the ones they fear. Alright, entanglement. So two particles that have interacted become entangled. That's our QP. A measurement of one instantly affects the other, regardless of its distance. Or their distance, In quantum astrology, chart factors that have once been activated by transit or progression become entangled. When a planet in the natal chart is aspected by a transit, it creates an entanglement that persists. A future transit to either planet can activate the original event's resonance. This is why certain themes recur in a person's life at predictable intervals. The original event created an entanglement, and each subsequent transit reactivates it. Relationship charts, synastry, are pure entanglement. Two systems that have interacted and are now forever correlated. When reading transits, trace the entanglement network. A transit to a planet that was prominently activated during a previous major event, Saturn return, Pluto transit, etc., will resonate with that event's themes. The past is not past, it is entangled with the present. So, now I want to get into the uncertainty principle. So you cannot simultaneously know both the precise position and momentum of a particle. The more precisely you measure one, the less precisely you can know the other. In quantum astrology, the uncertainty principle manifests as a timing meaning trade-off in forecasting. The more precisely you try to predict when a transit will manifest, the less precisely you can predict what it will mean. And the more precisely you try to describe what a transit means, the less precisely you can pin down when it will happen. This is not a failure of technique, it is a fundamental property of the forecasting system. A Saturn transit may hit on the exact date of the aspect, but its meaning may not become clear for months, or the meaning may be obvious, but the timing of its manifestation may stretch across the entire transit window. Never give a client a single date for a transit's manifestation. Instead, give a probability window and a meaning field. Let the uncertainty be part of the reading, not a limitation of it. Wave interference. So, when two waves meet, they combine. Amplitudes add, constructive, or cancel, destructive, creating interference patterns. So, in quantum astrology, aspects are interference patterns. A trine creates constructive interference. The two planetary waves amplify each other, creating a stronger signal, while an opposition creates destructive interference. The waves partially cancel, creating tension and paradox. A square creates complex interference. The waves are at different frequencies and create beats, periodic intensifications and relaxations, like we were going over in that visual a few minutes ago. So the chart is a standing wave pattern. We see that the natal aspects create a fixed interference field, and transits introduce new waves that interact with the existing pattern. And you should be reading the chart as a wave system, not a list of separate placements. The interference between natal aspects and transit aspects creates the actual lived experience. A transit that is harmonious in isolation may produce complex interference when it interacts with a difficult natal pattern. Some food for thought. Alright, quantum tunneling. So a particle can pass through a barrier that classically does not have enough energy to cross. The wave function decays exponentially inside the barrier but has non-zero amplitude on the other side. In quantum astrology, tunneling explains the breakthroughs. Oops. Not sure why that just happened like that, but alright. As long as we're still filming,